Hello, guys, and welcome to the Bene Mudra Podcast. I'm your host, James Bene, and today we have a really special guest. We are talking about past lives, and past lives is such a mysterious topic for so many people, and including myself. It's such a mysterious avenue to go down. So we have Faith Streng here, who is an intergenerational healer, I hope I get that correct, who specializes in past lives, healing trauma through past life regression and work, right? Is that kind of what you do?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to I didn't know how to phrase it. You know, we go off the cusp here on the show. So we're just kind of jumping in. So yes, you're a healer who deals in past lives, karma, dharma, and for many people that might be listening, they're probably like, what the hell is that? Some people might not have ever even have heard of past lives, or they have, and they kind of think it's like new age mumbo jumbo. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started down that path, or realization that you can connect to past lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I just love everything you do. I'm so excited to be here. So my mother and my grandmother were both healers. They both were trained in this modality called spiritual response therapy, which uses channeled charts and a pendulum to identify and release past life trauma. So just like trauma that has happened to us in this incarnation can manifest in many different ways if left unhealed, the same is true of our past lives, the idea of reincarnation. So I grew up with these sort of broad, big concepts and never thought I would do it as a career, but I did start doing the work myself. I picked up a pendulum, which working with a pendulum is an example of what is called an ideomotor response. And an ideomotor response is when your body has a physical reaction to a subconscious truth, like your eye starts twitching when someone says something that's true that you don't like or that resonates with you deeply. And so a pendulum is really an extension of your subconscious. So, and at the time that my grandmother was introduced my mother to this, hypnotherapists had been using it, other people in the profession had been using pendulums. And there was this one gentleman who said that, well, if you can use a pendulum to access your own subconscious, we should be able to also access the collective subconscious, which I now understand is called the Akashic Records, which is the iCloud of everything that's ever existed or ever will exist, every thought that's ever occurred, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so in my understanding of working with a pendulum, I was communicating with my high self, which is your spirit, Holy Spirit, the direct connection to source energy. And my mother started communicating with spirit with her eye blinks. She was able to get the number of the chart that she was using to clear and release, and she was able to get a yes or no answer in a relaxed state. And so I started doing that too. So in my early 20s, I developed this relationship with high self that I didn't really think much about because I'd always just known about it. And, was pursuing a career as a performer, as a writer. And then eventually I was like, well, this is unsustainable. This is not satisfying for me. What brings me joy? What do I really love? And after a few months of soul searching, I was like, oh, I'm a healer. It's in my blood. My grandmother did it. My mother did it. I've been doing it this whole time. I didn't even realize it. And so I had already done a couple levels in Reiki at that point, but hadn't really done much with it. I pursued getting my my Reiki master level and started my business and started doing Reiki. And while I was doing Reiki with people, my eyes were just blinking furiously. I knew I was doing clearing. Just sort of surrendering, because the idea behind this kind of work is that we're just shining a light on the things that the conscious mind can't get to. And so it's just going, oh, there's a wound there. There's something going on there. We're just releasing it. We don't need to go into it. We don't really need to know everything about it. We're just getting enough information to let it go. And as I started doing Reiki and started my practice, I realized that there was a connection between the chakras and unhealed past life trauma, that these traumas could affect how activated the chakras could become, our energy centers along our spine. And so as Reiki, which I call the gateway modality, it opens up channels in us, right? And as I was practicing more regularly, my own clairvoyant abilities were opening up, my clairaudient abilities were opening up. And eventually my business turned so that I was more focusing on working in the Akashic records. And it is so this gift, because of the, what my mother and my grandmother were aware of, that I'm able to access them in this sort of waking state. So it's different from a past life regression where someone would take you into a meditation. You would really go in and experience that incarnation, whatever that might be, in order to gain the clarity that you need. And this goes very fast. So in my sessions, I do we'll cover several different incarnations. And the point is always to just clear away the crud that's holding you back, that we don't understand. We all have like triggers that we don't quite know, or phobias we're not really sure where they come from. And when we start zooming out and we go, you know what, I don't think all the answers can be found, between birth and death, what we call birth and death. And when we start to zoom out and just accept that I have lived many lives before, all of a sudden it's like things just make sense. Why you have this weird relationship with your sister, and why you have this weird knee pain, and why you have a phobia of water. All of a sudden we go, oh, because these traumas happened that have never been examined or healed, because we have never before been as old of souls as we are before. We've never had the resources available to us before. We've never had the time and the global connection, that technology has allowed us before. And so it's really freeing. It's really enlightening. And the point is to just allow, I call what I do restorative spirit programming, because it is the process of allowing the brain to rest and clear away everything that is making us get into these spirals, this karmic stuff, so that we can then begin the process of positively reprogramming our brains so that we feel empowered to create our own realities.
Wow. Well, that is a mouthful. And to some people that might be listening, they might be like, what? But the gist of it is, what I'm getting is that you connect to a higher power, whether it's your higher self or some heavenly state, right? Or where perhaps spirit guides or masters or God, quote unquote, or angels, whatever you want to call this energy, kind of shares this information with you. Yeah, is that what I'm feeling? It's a shared information, or is it literally like when you are channeling this information, is it almost like you're just walking to an eternal library, So I guess my question is an energy feeding you this information, or are you literally tapping into like that place where all of these things exist, and you, your own self, your soul, is actually retrieving that information? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
I would say that's what it is. It is like I'm entering the library, and it is, this space that we all are capable of accessing. It is available to everyone. And it's like, I'm able, I see it first, and then I am able to, with this relationship I have, sort of confirm or deny if what I'm getting is on the right track, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Because I'm sure it's not like you are getting the clearest picture, because I know in my work too, you get bits and pieces. Sometimes it's like a puzzle. You have to kind of put it together. And other times it comes in like really clear. So you're just know it. So Faith, past lives, let's just talk about that. So is that based on the fact that our souls have reincarnated into many other lifetimes? And that perhaps we are trying to reach some type of enlightenment. We are trying to wrong the rights. We are trying to learn the lessons that perhaps weren't learned. Does our soul play an active part in reincarnating? Because, some religions like Catholicism, I mean, they don't believe in reincarnation. It's just, they don't believe it. Like, we die, we go to heaven, and there we are. And other religions do believe in reincarnation. So I know there's a difference between spirituality and religion, of course. But what is that process of past lives? Like, does our soul choose this, or is it just an endless reel of lives that we just keep living over and over and over and over again? Because that sounds awful to me.
Yeah, it does sound awful. Well, it's interesting to note too that the original teachings of Christianity included reincarnation, which were excluded from the Bible by Constantinople for political purposes. Basically, when the original matriarchy was in play, this was very common. And it was then extracted. It was extracted from the Bible as we know it now. So it's my understanding that so there's source energy, the universe, right? The all that is, and there's at a certain point there is a spark. There is a spark of a soul desiring to have an adventure. We'll say desiring to have an adventure, to expand and grow and experience everything that source has to offer. And in that moment, the soul separates and decides to begin this reincarnation journey, which does not go on forever. So we'll, spoiler alert, we'll say it doesn't go on forever. And so our soul will age. Our soul will age, which is how we get this idea of oh, they're an old soul, or oh, they're a young soul. Because some of us have, and there are some souls that have been around a little bit longer, and there's nothing better or worse about that. Just, we don't get mad at a baby for being a baby, right? We're not like, stupid baby, you don't know how to read or walk, right? And so what happens is, and we kind of have these levels that we go through. And as we learn these lessons, learn these levels, we grow up, we ascend, we get a little bit older. And eventually what happens is we exit the karmic cycle completely, and we have learned everything we needed to learn. We've experienced all that our soul wants to experience, and we return to source energy again as an expanded energy of high frequency love and light. And now that will take centuries upon centuries for most of us, right? But it is comforting to know that the end is something even more miraculous and joyful than we can even imagine. Which people who have experienced near-death experiences have relayed experiencing something kind of like that new documentary on Netflix, right? Surviving Death. In the first episode, they talk about that. So it's not just, it's because of, and they talk about, because of medicine, we're now able to bring people back from the brink. And we have so many people are reporting similar experiences that we go, okay, well, there has to be more than what we see here now.
I agree. There's so much evidence out there that our soul continues, that this is not the end all be all, and I hope to God it isn't, because there's got to be more than this earth plane. And that brings me to kind of my next question. Do souls reincarnate? Okay, is reincarnation based on karma? Like, if I was a horrible person in this lifetime, am I going to be reborn an ant, or, something like that? Is that really in play? And do we incarnate to other, worlds besides Earth?
Right. Beautiful questions. So it's interesting because I found myself early on being drawn to work with animals as well. And I have found that in utter surprise to myself that mammals and birds are in the same karmic cycle as people, at least at this point in time, which means that we choose the bodies that best serve us in that time, space, reality to learn whatever lessons we need to learn. Meaning that it isn't, in some, traditions, it's thought that you sort of, start as an ant and then you're this, and then you kind of work yourself your way up to human. But I've worked with, horses, dogs, cats, hummingbirds who were older than most humans on the planet and had been humans before. And sometimes I work with animals who thought they were going to be a human and then they're mad about it. And so we're doing clearing to get them ready for that ascension, for that next journey. So now it is so if your karma does influence what lessons you will learn in your next incarnation, but what that looks like is different for everyone, because what suffering looks like to everyone is different, if that makes sense. We all have seen people in this society, in this place that we are in now, that it will be interesting they will probably not come back to this earth for a while, which sort of is moving right into the next part of your question, which is that you are absolutely right. Earth is not the only place our souls go. And this comes from the channeled work that is in spiritual response therapy that my mother and my grandmother both did. So I do get downloads. So the Akashic records also include other planets, past lives in other dimensions, parallel lives, parallel universes. It is just our souls have experienced so much more than we have ever been taught to think. And it is all valuable. And the older we go, the more places we've been. So the more places we travel on this world, we may feel familiar to, we may feel like we are home, feel some kind of recognition. The more we learn about different, star seed races, which you may have talked about on this podcast before, different high frequency extraterrestrial races, which we've had so many channelers by this time who have identified them, that we can identify them. We've been different star seed races. And been in all these different realities, which we don't really have to understand. Whenever I'm in my sessions and something like that comes through, I'm like, just is what it is. Don't try and think about it too much. Your brain will explode. But it is so much more than what happens on this planet. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that clarifies that kind of concept of that your soul not only could be reborn here, but it goes wherever it needs to go to learn that lesson. And we just don't know where those other dimensions are. We just don't know that much. Right now, by meeting the future, they'll understand it more deeply. And there's also some like quantum physics and some philosophies that say that that everything is happening at once. And so that these past lives are actually all running at the same time. It's just like every parallel life that's happening is just like a sandwich, one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. And we're all just, your soul is experiencing everything at once, which could be really mind-blowing to think of like some bizarre, structure that our soul is within, some type of multi-level marketing scheme in the sky that we're just building on, you know what I mean? And you hope the person on top is doing a good job, and some people say that that's how we can pull from places, because we are connected to this, like this energy, this string of light, or whatever you want to call it, this strand that just connects us to everything in this dimension and other dimensions and beyond. And that's when your mind can start to go a little bit bonkers.
Yeah. And we know that we are only using a fraction of what our brains are capable of, right? Yeah. And as we begin to use, as we begin to use more parts of our brain, these worlds and this information is more available to us. That's what meditation does. As we relax more, we are literally using more parts of our brain, which is allowing us then to channel or be more receptive to the frequencies and the energies that are surrounding us at all times. But it really all starts with the mind.
Yeah.
It all starts with the mind.
Yeah. And so I agree with you. It is all in our mind. The capacity of our mind is unreal, actually, what we can do, what we are capable of in this body and in this lifetime, if we just put in I would say the practice or the dedication to really tapping into that. I do believe that we all are psychic. We all can kind of acquire this information, but some people just can't. They're like, I can't, I'm not there. Their soul maybe is young. They can't connect to that space. And so they need to go to people who can to figure this out. And so past lives or working through past lives, like I don't know, Many Lives, Many Masters, that famous book, right? The author, Dr. what's his name?
Brian
Weiss, right?
Brian Weiss?
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, I think so. That sounds right.
He was a doctor, hypnotherapist, and it just started happening with one of his clients, right? And so he kind of made this concept more famous, maybe, in like the 80s and 90s, right? I think that's when it was like the 80s, when the new wave generation kind of came in the 80s, and affirmations and Louise Hay and Hay House. Can it be, and now I'm just playing the cynic here, that it's a philosophy, kind of like another therapeutic intervention that people can use to heal themselves? Because maybe sometimes it's easier to think that this trauma that I'm carrying has a higher purpose, right? That I'm not just suffering here on earth, that this trauma, this karma, these fears that I'm holding, maybe they are coming from a different place. Maybe I've carried them into this lifetime. And it almost, I don't want to say eases someone's mind, but it can allow them maybe then to see it as something that's outside themselves, right? Something that is just a part of their existence here on earth, rather than, this is it. There's nothing else besides this. This is your trauma. It happened here on earth. You're going to live with it, or you're not going to live with it, And so sometimes, like, going into like a fanciful place of past lives, and you lived all these lifetimes where if you are scared of spiders in this lifetime, in this lifetime you were bitten by a giant spider, it could, for some people who are more imaginative, I don't know, for me, it could ease the pain of the trauma. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so.
No, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, I think what comes to me is what I get sometimes is there's this thought that, like, if I'm doing this work, that absolves me of responsibility. Like, or all these things have happened to me, like, there's nothing I can do, or that's just the way it's going to go. But it really goes hand in hand with the spiritual work we're already doing, and the body, mind, spirit connection that we already have. And it does bring, I would say, if someone is in a situation where it makes them feel better, there are famous old soul atheists that we've known, right? And they, if people choose, we always have a choice. We always have free will.
Yeah.
And I believe, because it feels good to me, that it feels good and it feels true to me to explore these realms in conjunction with my own spiritual work, while not paying too much attention to the details. Abraham Hicks is a great teacher of mine, and it took me a while. I looked up once, Abraham Hicks talks about past lives, just to see what they would have to say about it. And their perspective is, it's not worth it. It's not anything you need to be concerned about, because it doesn't have anything to do with this moment. It's just a distraction. And I really had to consider that. And because I realized how, and that is the temptation, that is the possibility, that you can get so obsessed with, I was a queen, or this horrible thing happened to me, right? And if that's the case, then yes, that becomes a distraction from the real work now in this moment, which is to follow your bliss and to live the best life that you can. But so the work that I do is more like, okay, yes, we see that, and now we're calling on our guides, our angels, anyone who wants to come through to just remove it for us. So this is really sort of picking up where the spiritual work leaves off, into that space of, I'm just surrendering this. I don't need to understand it. It doesn't help me to look at it too much. Now, everybody's different, but I think that, I would say, like, yes, it can be a philosophy that maybe makes someone feel better. And I would say, if that's the case, then, great.
Go for it.
Go for it. As long as it doesn't distract you from what's happening in this time space reality too.
Exactly. I agree with you, because there's a lot of spiritual bypassing that can happen. And you can put faith in these modalities, and then you just kind of ignore the truth of what's going on in your life. You're kind of handing it over, saying, oh, I'm going to live in this mystical place. I'm going to live in this imaginative state, when really we're supposed to have like both our feet on the ground here on earth and be living and taking action. So what you said was interesting about like how you don't really have to know if you're, let's say, or you don't pay too much attention. So you as a healer, so working with someone, and you feel intuitively, oh, there's some past life crap, come up. To me, I kind of felt like it was like, almost like a doctor and patient scenario. The doctor says, you need to get your appendix out. Don't worry, I'm going to take care of it. And you go under and they take the appendix out. So I got a sense that like what you do is like, oh, as you're doing a healing, you feel past life stuff. You try to call in the guides, get rid of it. A lot sounds like it happens at once. And the person doesn't necessarily need to know everything that's going on behind the scenes. They just need to feel better, right? Because past lives, people journey to them. Going into past lives isn't a party trick. This isn't something you go on, you're on the Santa Monica boardwalk, getting a reading. This is really a modality used for healing trauma a lot of times, and releasing things and helping people understand and opening up doorways of healing. So I get it. Like, and people can't do it on their own. They do need a facilitator there. So as the facilitator, since so much is going on really in your subconscious, it's right. They don't really need to know that much. So that's what I got from what you said. Almost like, again, that doctor-patient kind of relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never heard it described that way before, but but that sums it up really, really well. And I think that I also act as a filter. If I'm seeing something that's disturbing, like, I don't have to tell them that. I can just be like, there's some bad shit happening, and we're releasing it. You don't need it anymore. And in talking about trauma, what I found is that no one gets out unscathed, right? We all experience trauma, but what can happen is, if we have other trauma from past lives, we can't even deal with the thing that's in front of us, because we're getting these triggers that make it so much harder for us to move past it, to do whatever healing is necessary, because we have this other junk that's like getting in the way. So once we release this other junk, we can like deal with, okay, I can just like deal with my relationship with my mother. I can deal with this financial stuff that I'm going through. Once we're like free of the burdens of the trauma that our soul has experienced.
Yeah. And I believe that, holistic healing is healing through the body, mind, and spirit. And so, the body, mind, check. But who helps heal through the spirit? It's not a huge thing, and when people hear that, they think of priests going to confession, or I don't know, doing these types of things, where past lives really would be in that category, like healing your spirit, getting rid of the junk. And the junk might be from some other time or place, because right, like, it is proven that our souls continue And so if we're
Mm-hmm.
continuing somewhere from here, then we
Mm-hmm.
could probably go into the past, anywhere. So,
Yeah.
it just is there. It is there. And it
Mm-hmm.
takes a talented medium like yourself to be able to connect to that state of mind and that, or go to that Akashic record place to help someone really let it go on that spiritual, cellular level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this work it's very profound, and it's really helped people,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's really, really helped
Mm-hmm.
people, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I have a question. So let's do a little demonstration. So you can connect to the Akashic records. Yes. So for our
Mm-hmm.
listeners,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they want to kind of hear you in action. I know you're kind of been in that space. I could see that you've been channeling and kind of grabbing your information from, subconscious spaces. So right now, just me sitting with you, I'm a client, let's pretend, right? And I come into you and I'm like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
Faith, I don't know what's going on, but here I am. I'm open to being healed. Sometimes I feel crappy. Sometimes I feel great. I get anxiety, whatever. I'm all yours, right? Would you be able to to connect to any type of soul life that I might have had?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will, and it's and it's all for the purpose of healing, of
Yes.
course, right? So whatever's right at the surface, that's what we need to see in this moment. So I would, first I would say, is there something I have to do with the chakras? Are we using that as a portal to see
Mm-hmm.
what needs to be healed and released? Or are we just going right in? And so we're just going right in,
Let's
right?
just go in.
So
Yeah.
I would say, okay. Right. So I would say, okay, yes, there's a download coming through. Yes, this is a past life. Yes. And then I'm going to ask if it's on Earth or elsewhere. Yes, it's on Earth. So then I like to get a century. I like to get a time period. It brings, some context to it. So I'll get a time period. I'm going to the 1400s. And at this time, then I would ask if you were a male or a female, because again, that can just bring context to what we're looking at. And you were a female at this time. Most of us have gone back and forth and been, different genders for whatever served our purposes at that time. And I would say, yes, you were a female. Now I'll go into the world and I'll see if I can get a location. I am getting like Southeast Asia somewhere at this time. And then I will ask about how old were you? You were in your 20s. You were 22 at this time. And, for, people who are listening, my eyes are sort of blinking, giving me numbers, and I'm affirming or denying with my eye blinks here. So then at this time, I'll say, okay, so were you married at this time? You were not married. But you were also not living with your parents at this time. You were very poor in this incarnation financially, and I am seeing you living in some kind of community, but there was no family there. You were not married, you did not have children, which is always something that I ask as well. So of course, for some souls, not having financial means can be perceived as trauma, not always. And that's actually not what is coming up for you right now either. So then I would ask, is there a perceived wound here? And I say perceived wound because we know in an intellectual level, as we continue to study the great spiritual works, that we are spirit, we are infinitely connected to source energy, but our soul will, something will occur and we will perceive it as traumatic. And there is a perceived wound here, and it is something to do with the body, with your health. I think that you were ill at this time, something in the lungs, not bronchitis, but like pneumonia is what's coming through. And you did die quite young, not too long after I'm sort of dropping in here. So, and there was you were a younger soul then than you are now. Of course, if it was you, James, at this time, you would have been like, all right, I need to get some herbs. Like, I gotta like find someone, but you just didn't know what to do. There wasn't really an option for you at that time. And so now we're looking into sort of what is remaining somewhere in the subconscious, in the vibration as a result of this experience. There is something coming through of feeling, the sort of feeling of pushing against a wall. It is what's coming through, which can take place in any, and it's not necessarily just about your health or your physical body, but it is connected to the heart chakra, because the lungs and anything to do in that space is connected to the heart space. So there is something else here that is, there's just a feeling of, there's some despair coming through, like just an acceptance of like things are just hard and that's just how they're going to be. And that is a false belief, right? Now, you are someone who has done tremendous healing already. Obviously, we know that. And so this is just getting to whatever else is remaining somewhere that we don't really understand. Anything remaining in that light, we just ask that it be cleared and released and surrendered to source. And the healing is, and in that moment, the healing is happening. The surrendering is happening. This aspect of your soul, which is an aspect of yourself, is experiencing, like, now I just see this, there's like this, in this young woman at this time, there's like this light sort of coming out of the chest, this sort of freedom happening, with the understanding that as she transitions, that there is such love and light for her there that she has not experienced in that incarnation that was so difficult for her at that time. And now you, James, of course, know that is accessible to us in any time, space, reality. And it's so beautiful. You have shadows behind you right now of your plants, and they in fact look like wings on one side of you, which is quite nice at this time. And so then I would ask, is there anything else? Like, was there anyone in this incarnation that is with you at this time? And I'm getting no. And then that's just it. And the healing is done. The healing is happening. And that's all we need to know about that. That's all we need to know about that.
Wow. That's pretty intense, because, as the host, if you don't know, I'm also a healer and I do this work. I try to stay in the very much like, I don't really know this topic and I really want to pull as much information as I can. And so I'm really just open just to experience what you just did. And as soon as you started, my stomach started to cramp. Okay, I had like physical reactions starting to happen in my body, which I thought, like, what is happening? I was like, this is really weird. And you said 22, and 22 has always been my spirit number. Oh, it comes up always. When you said that, I was like, here we go, 22. Of course, that's showing up. And when you said something about hitting against the wall, that has been a theme. Or, everything is hard. Why is it so hard for me? It's never gonna happen. Good things happen to other people, never to me. I definitely have that, had it, and still have it. And I work through it now. I work through it. I don't let it get the better of me, but it is a theme. So it's very interesting. So what I'm saying to you is, it really like touched me at a level where at one point I felt very emotional. Like, I felt energy kind of coming into my heart, and then I wanted to like cry. Like, I had this like feeling of needing to release something, and tears seemed to be the way. And if we weren't live right now, maybe I would have, but that was the feeling I was having in my body. So I think that, and just like that, I think it's remarkable. I think it was a remarkable experience, and I was not expecting to have that. I was not expecting to feel that way. So thank you for that. That was really beautiful. And for me, just by hearing that, I'm like, okay, like, I can handle this nothing good ever happens to me thing now. I'm realizing that it doesn't have anything to do with this lifetime. It doesn't. It gets me off the hook. It gives me a feeling of grace, or being able to move forward, or like step over it, leave it in the past. And it's almost like leave your past in the past, right? So it's like you go into your past lives to then really leave them in the past. And I get it now. You're not supposed to drag them with you, but I guess we do, So thank you for that experience. I thought it was lovely. Do you have to believe in this work? And Faith, it's funny because like this work is so profound, and it's a shame. And this is maybe one of my, my dharma here on earth, is to really spread spirituality, make it mainstream, make these modalities a real way to heal, because they truly work. Why isn't this taught? Like, why don't you think this stuff is taught?
I think there's been a lot has to do with religion, and with how tied our world and our culture is to it, and sort of the confines of it, believing that we need that other figure to help us access the divine, or access these realms, which, and I think we both come from a place of like, I'm just like facilitating, like I'm just helping you, I'm just clearing these blocks to help you get there yourself. But I think it is becoming more mainstream. When I do Instagram lives, when we do Clubhouse, when we do these bigger events, people are so thirsty. I'm always surprised by it. And I think that, we are older souls now on this planet than ever before. This awakening is happening, which you are a part of, playing a very big role in. I'm so happy to be a part of that as well. And I think that we in our lifetime will watch it become more mainstream, much more mainstream, as more and more people are beginning to see that the way that they have been living feels unsustainable, and they're just not getting the answers or the peace that they feel like or the ease that they feel like they should. And people are getting more and more curious, and just looking to sort of find answers anywhere. And so it hasn't been because this is some of those very ancient teachings that have been stuffed away for a very long time, for particularly us in the West. But I have, it's like not even faith or hope. It's like something even more than that. Like, I just know it is transforming, and it is unrolling and it is people like you and I, and the people who are a part of Bene Mudra, and the other, people I see on Instagram who are making it snappy and making it fun, who are, I've heard you talk about this before, we are the natural evolution of the Hay House generation. We are making it accessible and fun and more, just easier for people.
Because it is easy. I think that's one misconception of spirituality. It seems like it's so difficult, but even the most difficult texts to understand, broken down, it's easy. It's love yourself, love others, live in joy. I mean, it's always that basic principle. It keeps going back to in many different ways, and I'm so glad that you're a part of it as well. And I do believe that this next generation of healers and artists are really here to expand the consciousness of this world. And in Kabbalah, the Kabbalists believe that our generation, because I believe we're in the same generation, is the generation that has come to healed. So in a way, in Kabbalah, they believe that the second coming of quote unquote Christ is a movement of a bunch of people. It's not a person, it's an energy and it's a feeling, so I believe that as long, everyone doing Christ's work or Christ's consciousness is resurrecting this, is bringing this back. And there is a movement back to love. And I think it is beautiful, especially coming out of Corona, and we're dealing with that whole situation, which is a whole other bag of worms. People are, like you said, seeking different modalities to help themselves. And let's face it, like, mental health in this country is bottom of the list, and it's awful that people that are suffering with that are they're stigmatized so dearly. And I believe that if we look at mental health from a spiritual standpoint, we really could change it. We can change, the concept of mental health. Mental health isn't mental health, it's spiritual health. Everything is a spiritual problem. My guru said, New York Kelly, she's like, everything's a spiritual problem. There's nothing that's not a spiritual problem. Every single thing is.
Yeah.
So you have to handle it spiritually. So for anyone listening, it's like, if you have a problem, it's a spiritual problem, and heal it spiritually, basically. That's like a really nice way in, bypass, a lot of maybe the pain of, going to 1,000 therapy sessions, and going nowhere. Because I know a lot of people that they do so much therapy and they just they're not getting it. It's nothing's really changing, but they'll come to a healer and in one session, they're like, boom, like, oh my, how did I not grasp this? And so that is the power of the work that you do. Yeah.
It is the process of remembering. It is the process of remembering who we are, which, as we said, is this infinite reflection of source energy. And when we don't feel that, that's when we feel separated. That's when we experience suffering. And now, it takes a very long time to get there, and we have to work through all body, mind, and spirit to really feel that to our core. But when you feel that to your core, nothing can faze you. Nothing can faze you. And this spiritual work, spiritual mental health, I just love that so much, is the process of remembering this infinite connection.
Yeah. And it's when you said that, like, it's a process of remembering. I don't know where I got this from, but I believe even in the Bible, Jesus Christ, who I believe was a great ascended master, said himself, remember me. And I think when he said that, remember me, it's just remember God, remember the God in you, remember that that's who you are. And if you have that inside of you, then you can look anything, right? You're just so powerful. And I think that's maybe what religion, has put a stop to because of, a plethora of reasons. Control, of course. Nothing against anyone who's religion. Religion has saved many people's lives, and it's great, but everything in moderation, right? But a lot of spiritual teachings and religious teachings oftentimes clash, they do, depending on what modality. So that's why we're more in the metaphysics, the quantum physics, spiritual law. Kind of that's what we govern here at Bene Mudra, and especially this podcast is more about the spiritual aspects of things. And past lives fits right into that. So I want to thank you so much for being with us today. And I really hope that this enlightens listeners to what past life healing really is and how you can use it to really do serious healing work, because healing is serious, but should be done with a smile. Does that make sense?
Yes, it doesn't have to be sitting and oming for hours and hours. Yes, it is playful, it is creative, it is all of those things too, and it is deep stuff, but we can have a joyful heart while we're doing it.
Yes. And I believe that's the way in. And so I recommend highly anyone listening to book a session with you. I think they would really benefit, especially if they're going through some type of trauma that they can't pinpoint in their lives. You can be found on Instagram at, what's your handle again, Faith?
At The Real Faith Streng. Yes, and that's Streng. Yes.
Great, at The Real Faith Streng. And if someone wants to book you for a session, they can also find you at benemudra.com under the booking, and they could look you up. You have tons of videos and classes that you've done that people can kind of go back and rewatch and take a look at to get to know you before they want to maybe invest in that type of work with you. But I truly recommend it. It was a pleasure to have you again. Thank you so much. And any last words to our listeners?
No, just, anybody who's listening, we are all alive together at this time, at this very exciting time. And I just want to say, thank you to everyone who's curious, who's interested, who's on their spiritual journey. They're helping to raise the vibration of the planet, So, and it's just beautiful. And I'm just so grateful to be here with you. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We are blessed and highly favored. Yes, thank you so much. Everyone have a great rest of your day.